Welcome, ladies and gentlemen of the old world. I hope you're all doing well, and today, my friends, we're going to be talking about the best units for each faction in Total War Warhammer multiplayer with a focus on domination mode. However, if you guys are more interested in land battles, I would still say a lot of these units are going to be having a lot of relevance, as there's a lot more crossover between the two game modes with the most recent changes to domination. So without further ado, let us go ahead and jump in with the Beastmen. So I've actually been playing a lot of Beastmen lately, and if you look at Beastmen win rates, they're certainly on the lower end. They usually sit between 30 and 40%, which is kind of on, the high elf range of things. But in general, I really think Beastmen are underrated, and I just think people haven't really taken the time to explore them. They have some really powerful tactics. Now, if we're talking about the best unit in the roster, for me, it's the Wargore on the cheap chariot. So what you do is you get the Wargore hero character, you put him on the Tuskor chariot, and you strip all of his abilities, and he only costs 900. I cannot tell you how many games I've played with the Beastmen lately against other, top players in the top 15 where I paid 900 for this thing, and after the game's over, he's at like 2,000, 2,500 value. He's just such a menace. Very quick, amazing armor piercing, bonus for infantry, good armor, durable by Beastmen standards. I'm telling you, do not sleep on this guy. Now, if we're going to be talking an honorable mention for the Beastmen behind him, like more of a traditional unit, I'm actually a big fan of the Ungor Raider. I think having the Vanguard, the very cheap archer to kind of sneak up on you is pretty good, and I really, really like Ungor Raiders quite a bit. So next up, we're going to be talking about the Dark Elves, and this is a tricky one for sure. Dark Elves honestly have a lot of good units. The Bleak Swords got buffed very heavily, and honestly one of the better, chaff units for their price point, with 36 melee attack, 32 melee defense, 35 weapon strength. We have the Coldwind Knights now, which used to be a little bit mediocre because of their rampage, sending them to their doom, but now Primal Instincts just gives free melee attack and physical resist and charge bonus. That's really good, but I think at the end of the day, the best units for me on the Druchii are going to be Blackheart Corsair. So we're just going to kind of lump together both of their variants. I feel like the Corsair for 650 is such a durable, fast unit. 40 speed, great armor, good combat stats, decent leadership. These things are just really good at swinging objectives, and I find that they trade cost effectively into so many different units. Now, on that same coin, we're talking about the Corsair handbows. I think these are just like, the Corsairs in general are just very good. Corsair handbows are amazing skirmishers, even if light. Most people shut down like foot-based skirmishers, like gutter runners using, let's say Glade Riders or Dervishes. But the problem with trying to do that against Dark Elf Corsairs is they have super good armor and really good melee stats. So even if your skirmish cav catch the enemy Corsairs, they don't really care. If Chaos Hounds catch them, they're just going to turn around, defeat those hounds, and continue shooting their bows. So overall, I would say that the Corsairs are the best units for the Dark Elves. Now, going on to the next faction, it's going to be Grand Cathay. Cathay's got like basic Jade Warriors are super good, but for me, the one unit I've seen with Grand Cathay where you're like, oh yeah, that thing just ended my game is the Iron Hail Gunner. Now they got short range, but man, if your Lord gets close to Grand Cathay and you're not paying attention or a high value piece gets near them, Iron Hail Gunners will absolutely ruin your day. They will just flip you upside down, put you in the trash can, and blast you into another dimension. We saw this in the Summer Championships when Grand Cathay was actually terrible in the previous patch. The Iron Hail Gunners were able to carry Platypus to victory against a very strong opponent who's playing Slaanesh simply because of how insane their damage is, and that still is very, very true to this day. Now for Khorne, not much has changed. They got some good DLC stuff, like some of their basic mortal units are fine, but I would say Khorne is a little bit overcosted in a lot of their warriors, like 850, 950, 1,000 is a little bit too much for just the basic warrior variants. And their Marauders just have really low melee defense, so I find they don't trade super well, but the best unit for Khorne is the Fleshhounds. Fleshhounds are just insane. 750, they defeat most, medium tier cav, super fast, high damage output, 65 weapon strength, what's not to love? Khorne Fleshhounds. If you guys are a Khorne player, you're going to be summoning like 12 of these over the course of a domination game. Now for Norsca, a little bit of a tricky one, honestly. Norsca's got a couple really, really good units, but overall, you're going to be seeing this as a recurring pattern in today's video. That the Marauder Horseman units are they perform far above their pay grade. So I would say the best unit for Norsca is the Marauder Horsemaster. They have good combat stats. They do a lot of damage with their javelins at 33. And the reason why Marauder Horsemen are so busted compared to things like Pistoliers and Glade Riders is because when they get into melee combat with something, they not only fight with their first rank, but they also throw their javelins from all their ranks. So basically they're getting, like double the DPS they should, essentially. I mean, that's not necessarily the accurate metric, but they're getting way more DPS than they should. And this is something that's actually been in the game for a long time throughout most of Warhammer 2. And hopefully it's something that Creative Assembly fixes. Because honestly, if you brought Marauder Horsemen down and made it so they didn't throw their javelins in melee, like their ranged attack, while also hitting you in melee, and you nerfed Hellstriders, I think that Warriors of Chaos would be a much more balanced faction. But again, as it is now, and who knows, Creative Assembly might not ever change it. Marauder Horsemasters are the best unit for Norsca and are just very, very powerful. So going on over to Skaven, the best unit for Skaven is hands down the Poison Wind Globadiers. These little rats are just game-changing. For 550 with 100 armor, they will wreck any infantry, any cav that get in range. And yes, they do friendly fire damage, but who cares? Your front line's clan rats and Skaven slaves, and often you're going to be buffering with summons anyways. So again, Poison Wind Globadiers, if you're a Skaven player, don't leave home without these. These things will single-handedly swing battles. You'll pay 500 for them, and then after the game's over, you'll look at them and be like, oh man, you got 1500 value? Wow. Very, very common. I would almost always bring like 2 of these in most matchups. There are a couple situations maybe you don't bring them, but in general, like 90% of the time, every single Skaven build is going to be having at least 2 of these bad boys. So next up, we're going to be heading to Tzeentch, and surprise, surprise, the best unit for Tzeentch is the Marauder Horsemen of Tzeentch. Now, these ones are probably one of the best Marauder Horsemen in the game because they do have the debuff of lowering enemy armor and adding fire weakness, so they just make themselves stronger, basically, because they make their target weak to fire. They do fire damage in both melee and range, and again, they have that same bug where they attack in melee and also throw their javelin. So the amount of DPS that Marauder Horsemen of Tzeentch do is just insane. On top of that, they also regenerate shield. So most of the time with skirmishing, you poke in, you trade fire, you run away. Tzeentch can trade fire, take the damage on their shields, regenerate, come back and do it again, which just makes them gross. Like these things are just so powerful, and every Tzeentch player in almost every single matchup is going to bring at least like 3 of them, if not 4. Now, for the Warriors of Chaos, the best unit on the roster is the Hellstriders of Slaanesh. So, I know it's kind of stupid, right? They have like a ton of cool, like undivided units and things like that, but let's just be frank here. Hellstriders of Slaanesh cost only 600 gold with the anti-large variant, which is what we're talking about. They should cost like 700 to 750. They just are grossly undercosted. 100 speed, anti-large, and poison. I mean, man, if you're microing well with these things, your opponent should never get the charge on them. They will always get the charge on you with good control. They can outmaneuver your heavy cav. If you're trying to defend your backfield using your own like Empire Knights who have like 70-something speed, these things are always going to outmaneuver you and get to those juicy spots in your army. And they defeat Centaurs who cost like 100 more. They trade super well into Empire Knights, which cost a lot more and are armored, mind you. Like they are just a disgusting unit. Like Hellstriders of Slaanesh are just broken and really are one of the main reasons why the Warriors of Chaos are just problematic. So next, we're going to be going to Bretonnia. So for Bretonnia, you would think it would be one of their knights, and questing knights are really good, but honestly, the unit that I win most games with Bretonnia with is the Blessed Field Trebuchet. So in Warhammer 3, explosion effects got buffed, so essentially things that explode do more damage. So Blessed Field Trebuchets are way more effective now, and honestly, they carry me in most of my Bretonnian games. Because the problem is, if Bretonnia doesn't bring Trebuchets, your opponent comes in with like a halberd line, you can't effectively trade with them. So you need trebuchets to kill halberds, which then allow your knights to really run rampant and do a lot of work. So again, I would say Blessed Field trebuchets are the best unit. They do great damage. They can honestly kill like heavy cavalry as well. They're just a solid piece of equipment. For the Dwarves, the best unit, in my opinion, is the Skyhammer. Skyhammer is the Arawar Gyro Bomber. What's really good about this in the current domination iteration is that the minigun is really good because it has the suppression effect, which lowers speed. It's really good at killing chariots and SEMs, which dwarves usually don't like. And on top of that, its bombing run, the Skyhammer bomb, does a gross amount of damage. So what you do is you use its ammo with its minigun, you use the 4 bombardments, and by that point it will have gotten like probably 1500 to 2500 value, and then you unsummon it and you get a refund, which is crazy because currently when you unsummon units, you get a refund based on the existing HP. It doesn't take into account ammunition, which is really dumb. It definitely should, and I have a feeling that'll get changed in the future, but for now, the Skyhammer is like just such a powerful piece for the Dowie. For the Greenskins, this is a tricky one. They don't get played a lot, but I would say for the Greenskins, the units I'm always like find really overperforming are the Squig Herds. Squig Herds in Warhammer 2 were much more expensive, and now they only cost 350. So for 350, you're getting an armor piercing, anti-infantry, relatively high movement speed, decent leadership by Greenskin standards, especially for a cheap monster. And yeah, they have these Squigs go wild, which gives them leadership in combat, and they have immune to psychology, so they're really sticky. And for only 350, that's so damn good. I would say Squig Herds are the best unit on the roster. They're just always useful, right? Like, you swarm them onto objectives. They cost nothing. They trade upwards into armor. They trade into cheap infantry. They are immune to psychology. They have, when they're in combat, they have 70 leadership, which is crazy, right? So, yeah, give Squig Herds a try if you're a Greenskin player. You're not going to regret it. For Kislev, I would probably say the sleds are still the best. The light war sleds and the heavy war sleds, we'll just kind of lump them together, are both very good. Excellent at clearing out infantry, really, really good DPS and shooting. They have many of the strengths of Empire War Wagons, with, of course, the ability to actually be very effective in melee. Granted, I think War Wagons are actually a better unit than war sleds nowadays, simply because they're a little bit cheaper and their shooting is just so good. But yeah, light war sleds are amazing. And if you're a Kislev player, you almost never leave home without having at least one or two in your army. So definitely think those sleds do work. Now looking at your boy Nurgle. Nurgle's a kind of a tricky one. If we take a look here at the Nurgle roster, like none of their infantry are really that good. Like they're okay, I guess. They're fighty, but really, as much as I hate to say it, like the one unit that I always have to bring with Nurgle if I want any chance is going to be Marauder Horsemen with the throwing axes. And again, they're decent at fighting up close. They have poison, they have armor piercing, and they also throw their axes at a range when they're in melee. So the front row will be doing damage, and then their axes are coming in too. So their DPS is good. They're one of the few Nurgle units that actually give you agency on the battlefield and don't put your opponent's mercy. So again, Marauder Horsemen and Nurgle are going to be the best unit for me. As much as I hate to say it, it's just the facts. So Slaanesh, you heard me rant about Slaanesh earlier. You heard me talk about the Hellstriders. Hellstriders are the best unit on the Slaanesh roster. 600 gold, they trade upwards into pretty much everything. They're super maneuverable, super fast to get to the front lines from the reinforcement point. Immune to psychology. Mark of Slaanesh is just, like every other Mark of Chaos has like a disadvantage that's significant, but Slaanesh is like, here, have immune to psychology and everything, so you can't be terror routed. Have physical resist. Like, I don't know what they were thinking with Slaanesh. Slaanesh just really got overtuned. But yeah, Hellstriders is Slaanesh, the anti-large variant, just extremely broken, very strong unit, hands down the best. So for Vampire Coast, we're going to be jumping on over to the Vampirates. Now, this might not be like, I think Depth Guard are one of the best units, and I'm just going to say Depth Guard because I think they're the coolest, but probably I'm going to say it's like a tie between Depth Guard and Bomber Mobs. Bomber Mobs are so good. They're one of the reasons why the Vampire Coast can deal with melee factions and can trade upwards into Tomb Kings at times. And Depth Guard are just an insanely good sweeper unit. So for me, I'm going to be saying the Zombie Fighter Gunnery Mob Bomber variant, as well as the Depth Guard. Depth Guard with the new healing mechanics in Warhammer 3 being percentage based. Dude, these guys are linebackers. They are hard to remove. They trade very well. And Bomber Mobs are just excellent as well. So we're going to do a little bit of a two-way tie here between those two units. Now for the hardwood, I think like Eternal Guard are really good, but for me, the one thing I see in almost every Wood Elf matchup is going to be the Humble Glade Guard. Glade Guards are a pretty awesome missile unit. You know, for just 500, you're getting something with the 170 range with pretty good damage output, relatively quick with 36 speed, and they can also fire while moving, which is really good. I think Glade Guards are an awesome unit. So for the Wood Elves, I would say that the 3 Glade Guard variants are very nice. You have poison, you have magic damage on all of them, which is really good against a lot of the new demon stuff. And yeah, Starfire Shafts are also amazing for dealing with armor and chaos. So again, the Humble Glade Guard is going to be my pick for the hardwood. For the Demons of Chaos, it's going to be Fleshhounds. You know, obviously Be'lakor is the glue that holds that faction together, but if you end up playing them, like you're always going to bring 4 Fleshhounds of Khorne. They're just such a good unit and are hands down the best demon unit in my opinion. So for the Demons of Chaos, it is going to be Fleshhounds. Now for the Sons of Sigmar, the most meta-defining unit for them that pretty much is auto-take. What's kind of funny about it is it's the Sunmaker. The Hellstorm Rocket Battery ROR, the amount of damage this thing does is insane. And plus, once it uses its limited ammunition, you just unsummon it, get a big refund, and just summon whatever else you need, right? So I would say that the Sunmaker is the best unit for the Empire, but considering people are starting to build against it so much, like it's becoming a little bit less powerful because people just tech so hard against it to shut it down. So sometimes you can get wrecked a little bit. I would say the War Wagon is like the second best unit that probably in the future will be the best unit. The War Wagon with 130 range, great shooting, good armor, good speed. You can use the War Wagons as a roadblock against enemy skirmish cav to protect your backfield. You can deal with enemy SEMs. War Wagons are very good, but I would still say the Sunmaker is like the best unit on the Empire right now, simply because if you don't deal with the Sunmaker, it will crush you and you will suffer badly. So now we're going to be going on over to the High Elves. The High Elves, I've been watching some high-level High Elf play lately, which does exist. I actually was recently casting a tournament, not casting, but playing in one, and I saw a High Elf player defeat a very high-level Slaanesh player using Mass Lothern Seaguard. Then I saw a couple other builds with Lothern Seaguard being very durable in these long, grindy games, and you know, I'm going to go out and say that I think Lothern Seaguard, the 2 variants, the shielded and the basic variant, are the best unit on the High Elf roster. They do very well. Their shooting is good. They're durable. They can deal with many meta things like Marauder Horsemen, as well as like Hellstriders as Slaanesh. And yeah, I think they're a pretty good unit, honestly. I do like those hybrid missile units. Like I think Kossars for Kislev are also very good. Now, Lizardmen. This is a tricky one. This is a faction that, you know, I'm pretty knowledgeable of most factions, but Lizards they feel very alien to me. They're like a faction I don't have a ton of knowledge with. I want to go ahead and say like Chameleon Skinks are just one of the best units for their ability to shut down enemy skirmish, kite people, really control the pacing of the battle in the skirmish game and the SEM sniping. So I'm probably myself going to be going with the Humble Chameleon Skink. But again, if you're a Lizardman main and you actually play them actively in tournaments, do let me know. But in my experience, As an Empire player, I hate seeing these things. They're just a nightmare. And I would imagine they're good in the Chaos matchups with how strong Marauder Horsemen are. These guys are a great counter against them. They can kite them, they can poison them, they can shoot them to pieces. They're also not bad in melee too, so I really do like the Chameleon Skink. Now, we're going to be heading on over to the Ogre Kingdoms. I think the best unit in the Ogre Kingdoms, which is pretty much the only thing they really have, one of the only things they have going for them is the Lead Belchers. Lead Belchers are amazing. They're basically like Ushabti Greyposts with good speed. They hit very, very hard. And yeah, they're honestly not terrible in melee too. If they do get caught, they can survive because they have a decent HP pool. I would say that Lead Belchers are the best unit on the Ogre Kingdoms, maybe followed by just the basic Ogre Bull and then the Man-Eater Pistols, which I also think are pretty good, especially Powder Guts. So next up, we have the Tomb Kings. Tomb Kings are hands down the strongest faction of the game right now. They trade well in every aspect. They have some of the best horsemen via Nahakar horsemen, as well as skeleton horsemen and Vanguard. They have some of the best sustainable grindy infantry in the game, especially when you take into account how crazy strong Realm of Souls is with Lore of Nahakara. They have Ushabti Greyposts, Sepulchral Stalkers. They're just really good. But of all their infantry, I actually think that Nahakar Warriors are the most cost-effective. Tomb Guard are amazing, don't get me wrong, but Nahakar Warriors for 525, bonus versus infantry, great combat stats. They have 9,100 HP. Tomb Guard only have 9,800, so it's not that much less for the a much cheaper price point. I would say that Nahakar Warriors trade super well and are just generally such a strong unit. One of the few kind of price-appropriate units that actually can trade and defeat the Slaanesh infantry, which typically are just super overpowered. So again, I would say that Nahakar Warriors are hands down one of the best units on the Tomb Kings roster, and in my opinion are the best. It's very close run between Tomb Guard and Nahakar Horsemen. Like, they're all very good, but I found that the backbone is really the Nahakar Warriors, which makes sense thematically, right? Vampire counts, let's get into it. So Crypt Horrors. Crypt Horrors, let's have a little bit of a talk about Crypt Horrors, shall we? These things cost 900 gold. And they have 10,752 HP. Now let us just waddle on over to Chaos Spawn of Nurgle. If we look at Chaos Spawn of Nurgle, these things have 9,600. So like, Nurgle is known for their HP and tankiness. Their spawn, who costs 100 more, have 1,000 less HP. They also are slower than Crypt Horrors. They have 37 speed, whereas when you look at Crypt Horrors for the vampire counts, they have, I believe, speed close to 50. Yeah, 50 speed. They have like 15 more speed, 1,000 more HP. Yeah, they do a little bit less damage, but they also have poison and they regenerate on top of all that. They regenerate, which is crazy. Like, Crypt Horrors should 100% cost 1,000 gold. It is really stupid and they're super undercosted. But in general, I think Crypt Horrors are just so good. They're so good. And again, I think just adding a cost increase to them would be better than just nerfing them, because then people who play campaign would be happy. I think you could just, price them appropriately, like 1,000, 1,050. The regenerating, the poison, the mass, the speed, it's just insane. They are such a good unit. And Chaos Spawn also have less armor too. Like, Chaos Spawn, if you look at them, they have something like 10 armor, and these guys do have 30 armor, which isn't insignificant for sure. So, yeah, Ogre Bulls are just looking at them, wishing they were Crypt Horrors. Anyways, guys, that is all the factions for today. I don't think I missed anybody. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that one. Let me know your thoughts. What do you guys think are the better units? I think the ones that I might not have nailed is probably the Lizardmen, so I'd be curious to hear what you guys think on that. But anyways, really appreciate you all. If you enjoyed the video, do drop a like. It helps out quite a bit. Helps more people find the channel and get into multiplayer, join our tournaments, etc., etc. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back soon with more action, more tournaments, more replays, all the good stuff. And again, really appreciate you all. Take care, and may Sigmar bless you.